Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce you to the June 22nd meeting of the East Whiteland Zoning Hearing Board. Andrew, we've got some pre-business before we start the appeals.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, Andy Rao, your solicitor. I'd like to thank everybody for being on East Whiteland Township's first virtual zoning hearing. We'd like to, at the outset, just announce two zoning hearing board executive sessions that were held on June 16th at 6:00 p.m. And that was essentially for virtual meeting training to use this platform. And then on June 22nd, this evening, the board met as early as 6:30 p.m. to briefly discuss the legalities of the application and also make sure the platform was functional. I'd also like to announce two continuances. First, Linden Hall, Montessori, and DeMarco, that's appeal 2020-03. That hearing is continued. It will not be heard tonight. There's a current zoning hearing board extension to August 31, 2020. The other continuance is Water Walk Real Estate Development. That's appeal number 2020-04. That zoning hearing board extension goes to July 31, 2020. So if anybody is on the virtual platform interested in or wanting to participate in either of those appeals, they will not be heard tonight, and they'll be advertised into July or August if they're going to be heard then. We'd also like to announce that this meeting is being recorded, and Mark Haggerty, who many of you have seen live in zoning hearings, is our court reporter. He has joined us remotely tonight. We'd ask that participants try to not jump in or speak over each other when the time comes. And Mr. Haggerty will be sure to let us know if that's happening, because it makes it difficult for him to make a transcript. Mark, you can hear us?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Okay. Tonight, we have 4 zoning hearing board members present. The chairman, Mr. Hessen, board members Karen Milner and Joseph Samuel, and Jay Levin is our alternate this evening. Also on the platform is Ted Locker, our zoning officer, and Zach Barner, our director of planning. I checked with Mr. Locker just before we started the meeting, and as some of you may know, the written legal notice provided that people could email public comment if they wanted to prior to the hearing. And Ted, I understand you received no public comment on either application for tonight?
Correct. As of 5 minutes ago, there was nothing there.
Okay.
Andy, we will monitor that mailbox throughout the hearing as well. Okay.
And we did set a deadline, but people, if you want to give that accommodation, it's fine if you're monitoring the email. The 2 hearings that are going to be heard tonight are Plainbrook Partners LLC. That's appeal number 2020-06. It's at 105 Church Road. That's for incursion into man-made steep slope disturbance. That's a variance to create safe site distances. And the second application is Lotta Kennedy Builders. That's appeal number 2020-07. It's 18 Deer Run. That's a front yard variance request for a residential renovation. So at this time, other than the folks that we've already identified, I understand from Mr. Jaros previously that he will be the primary speaker for Plainbrook, and he has with him Vic Kelly of Commonwealth Engineers and Scott Risbin on behalf of the applicant. And then when we get to Lotta Kennedy, I believe Robert Lotta plans on being present, and Ryan Suplee and Caitlin Suplee, the homeowners, will be present, as well as Lauren Showers from Lotta Kennedy Builders. So other than all of those many folks who have been identified, this would be a point for Zach to ask if there is anybody else on the platform who is going to wish to be heard tonight, either through public comment or as a party.
Yeah, I don't see any hand raising. I don't see any extra people in the participants list. So I think we're probably safe to move forward with the applicants.
Zach and Andrew,
Okay.
this is David. People may join, like they walk in late to the meeting. So Zach will just monitor that for either application. So we'll accept them if they come in late and want to talk.
All right, then starting with Plainbrook, if the chair would like, I'll briefly identify the board exhibits. And I believe Mr. Jarris has the presentation to make on behalf of the applicant, and we'll do it in the form of an offer of proof, meaning he does not necessarily have to go through all of his witnesses. He can represent what they would say if sworn, but of course, all the board members can ask questions and get all of the response that they need.
Please begin, Andrew. Go ahead.
So with that, for Plainbrook, the UPI number is 42-3-123.1. And as the board may recall, this was previously before the board as an approval for a daycare. That was a use variance. The board exhibits for tonight are Exhibit B1, which is the application. It's dated January 29, 2020. Exhibit B2 is the proof of publication. It did run the ad on June 7 and June 14. We're waiting for the official proof, so that's held in reserve. Exhibit B3 is the staff affidavit of posting and a photo indicating the posting of the property on June 15, 2020. And finally, Exhibit B4 is my correspondence dated June 5, which acknowledges the application and reminded the applicant of their notice responsibilities. So unless the board has preliminary questions, the chair may wish to turn it over to Mr. Jarris.
Has notice been given? We've got proof of notice to the adjacent property owners.
I believe that'll be part of the applicant's exhibits Mr. Jarris is about to run you through.
Great.
With the permission, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Jarris. I am counsel to the applicant, and by way of procedure, I just wanted to make one correction this evening. The application was originally filed under Plainbrook Partners, LLC, which was a special purpose entity formed by my clients to place the property under agreement and to proceed with the first application. Since that time, my clients have closed on the property and will continue to develop the property under special purpose entity 105 Church Road Partners, LLC. So if we could please make that note in the record, I would appreciate it. By way of offer of proof, the subject property is located at 105 Church Road in the township and consists of 1.9 acres of vacant property. The property is zoned R1. In August of 2019, the then equitable owners of the property, now the legal owners of the property, obtained relief from this zoning hearing board from section 200-21 for a use variance to permit construction of a 2-story daycare facility with associated stormwater management and parking. I'd like to ask that we incorporate a copy of the decision from that zoning hearing board dated August 26, 2019 into the record, if we could, Mr. Rao. The applicant is seeking
And that's not a problem. It'll be referenced in any decision.
Thank you. The applicant is seeking relief from zoning ordinance section 57-D as in David 1, 2, and 6 to disturb man-made steep slopes in order to provide adequate site distance for safe ingress and egress to the proposed daycare facility. The area of disturbance of steep slope is a man-made road embankment of Church Road, which is entirely within the Church Road right-of-way and owned by East Whiteland Township. The Board of Supervisors voted to permit my clients to submit an application to the zoning hearing board to disturb the very steep slopes in the township-owned road frontage of Church Road by a letter dated June 18th, 2020 from zoning officer Theodore Locker to the chair of the zoning hearing board. Regardless of the exact location of the driveway access, those man-made slopes would have to be regraded to provide adequate site distance. The applicant submitted its application on January 30th, 2020 of this year. Requisite written notice of this hearing this evening was sent to contiguous property owners by a letter dated June 10th, 2020 from Mr. Alan Zimmerman, project manager with Commonwealth Engineers, Inc. The applicant submitted its variance application to the Township Zoning Hearing Board on January 30th, 2020. As I stated, I'm acting as counsel for the applicant this evening, and my two witnesses in support of the application, as Mr. Rao mentioned, are Mr. Scott Risbin, representing the applicants, and our civil engineer, Mr. Vic Kelly of Commonwealth Engineers, Inc. Copies of the applicant's exhibits in support of our application were previously marked and submitted to the Township Zoning Hearing Board in advance of this evening's hearing, and they are as follows. Applicant's Exhibit A1 is a deed to the property. Applicant's Exhibit A2 is opinion and order of the Zoning Hearing Board dated 8/26/2019. Applicant's Exhibit A3 was a letter from the Township Zoning Hearing Board to the Zoning Hearing Board Chair, Mr. Hessen, dated June 18th, 2020. Applicant's Exhibit A4 was a variance request plan prepared by Commonwealth Engineers, Inc., dated January 29th, 2020. Applicant's Exhibit A5A and B are two photos showing the current view from both directions of the property. Applicant's Exhibit A6A is a certificate of notice. A6B is a list of contiguous property owners, and A6C through N, as in Nancy, were copies of notices to contiguous property owners dated June 10th, 2020. As I stated, my two witnesses are present and ready to answer any questions the Zoning Hearing Board would have. And Mr. Rao, I don't know if you want them sworn at this point.
Why don't we just ask Mr. Haggerty to swear your two witnesses in case they need to answer any questions?
Very good.
Mark, do you mind administering the oath?
Would you both please raise your right hand? You swear the testimony? I need both of you to raise your hand. Mr. Risbin? I can't see your hand raised. Is he on the screen, Mr. Risbin?
No, it's blank.
It is blank. And
I'll assume you're raising your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
you have to unmute.
Unmute, there we go.
Got it. Unmuted, yes, I do.
Mr.
Scott, you have to unmute as well.
Scott,
Scott disappeared.
no, he's there now.
Oh, is he?
I do.
Very good. And gentlemen, I will ask,
I do.
thank you. And I was remiss in stating that the application as submitted and the testimony in the form of the offer of proof that I've given does in fact comply with the criteria for relief and does in fact comply with section 200-115 D3A, E, and F. Gentlemen, I would ask both of you and ask you to respond affirmatively that if called and asked to give testimony in support of the application in a question and answer form, would your answers essentially mirror the offer of proof that I've just given at the opening or outset of our application?
Yes, it would for me.
Yes, me as well.
Thank you. Mr. Rowell, I open it up to any questions the Zoning Hearing Board may have of Mr. Kelly or Mr. Risman.
And so with that, if the chair would like to walk the board through any questions, the applicant's ready to answer.
Yes, I guess my first question. So again, you know, the incursions into the steep slope or very steep slopes are prohibited within our ordinance. But we have looked at the concept of steep slope and very steep slope as is it a natural steep slope or is it some sort of man-made steep slope that was created via a road or there was some building construction that occurred. So can you describe this steep slope area where this driveway site incursion is going to be? One of you?
Yes, I can do that. This is Vic Kelly. These are clearly man-made steep slopes that were put in for the cut of Church Road as it goes along the embankment. In fact, we think it may have been some spoil piles from when they were constructing Route 202, many, many years ago. And I do have some pictures there. I don't know if Zach has the ability to tie those in to demonstrate where those man-made slopes are, just to give you a better sense of what it is that we're doing.
Would the-
Zach, is that a possibility, or how? I'm
Would
not
the
sure
board
how
members
that'll
like to
work.
see those? Joe or Karen, Jay, do you want to see those pictures?
Are they the pictures that are already included in Exhibit A-5?
They are.
No need, I can see them.
Okay,
Agreed.
great.
I am able to bring them or the site plan up at any time if anyone would like. Just let me know.
Yeah, I have no questions in that regard. Joe or Karen, do you have any questions other than those at this time?
Not at this time.
No.
Any
The only thing that I have is A3 is from Ted Locker about talking about the disturbance and maintaining the perpetual maintenance agreement. And I just need to make sure the applicant is prepared to do that.
That's a fair question, Mr. Levin, and I failed to note that the letter does in fact reference a maintenance agreement, and I believe my clients are willing to accept that as a condition of approval if in fact the board were inclined to grant the relief. I believe the phrase is, as a condition, the Board of Supervisors requests that a perpetual maintenance agreement for the strip of ground between the cartway and the tract frontage and/or easement be required. And just again, so the record is clear, I'll ask Mr. Kelly, Mr. Risman, is that a condition of approval you'd be willing to accept?
Yes, it is.
It is. It is.
We will include that then, Mr. Jaros.
Very good. If there are no further questions, that does represent the applicant's case. I would move into admission applicants exhibits A1 through A6.
Zach,
And
has
unless the
anyone
board
joined the
has-
meeting? Has anyone joined the meeting that would like to speak in regards to this that we are not aware of?
There's no one in the waiting room currently. There was one participant that joined following the opening of the meeting. They're noted as Malloy. I did attempt to message this participant, but I didn't receive a response. I can ask them to unmute if you'd like, just in case.
We'll find out who they are,
Sure.
what they want to speak in regards to.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Which application would you like to discuss?
I'm just here for what you're speaking about now. I live across the street, 106 Church Road. So
And ma'am, what is your full name?
Eileen Malloy. I spell it Eilene.
And your address is 106 Church Road?
Yes.
So are you interested in being a party to the proceeding, or do you just wish to make comment for the board to hear or consider? Or are you just listening in?
Well, I received the letters, so I thought I would come on, and then in case I did have a question, I thought I would, join. But I guess I do have a question. What is it exactly? I'm sorry, I got on late. I called today because the letter mentioned a phone number and I didn't hear back. So then I thought, try yourself. So I did.
So what's your
So
question?
ma'am, if your question is what's the nature of the use?
I don't know what is it that you're requesting?
Mr. Jaros can answer, but essentially the board tonight has a limited purpose, and it's the question of whether steep slopes can be disturbed, meaning moved or graded, in order to allow for greater sight distance entering and leaving the property.
And that's exactly right, ma'am. My clients received a use variance back in August of last year to build a daycare center on the property. And in starting after that use variance was granted into fully engineered land development, it became clear that in putting in a driveway entrance for ingress and egress to the project, it's going to require disturbing man-made steep slopes that are located within the township's Church Road right-of-way. And there's essentially no place to put the driveway that you can avoid disturbing these steep slopes in order to obtain safe and adequate site distance. So this very specific application before the zoning hearing board tonight is for that variance relief to disturb steep slopes in that Church Road right-of-way in order to provide safe and efficient site distance for the driveway.
So, Ms. Malloy, basically what they're doing is they're widening out the entrance and egress to the property so that you can see it more easily as you come around the curve on Church Road.
Oh, okay. I just live across the street and I was wondering how it would affect me. So
Sure.
Yep. Okay.
I didn't know what it meant.
And we're glad you're participating.
That's fine. That's fine for you to ask questions. No problem at all.
Thank you.
So do the board members have any further questions for the applicant?
I guess I have a question just generally, Mr. Chairman. I struggle with these steep slope applications because, and I think you mentioned this in your questioning, the statute says that these are specifically prohibited and shall not be subject to variance. And I'm wondering, I know that we've discussed the fact that these are man-made. How are we resolving that? I guess one thing I'd like to know is what was discussed at the Board of Supervisors level that precipitated the letter that's in evidence, and was anything concerning what I just asked discussed at that meeting?
Ted, that kind of falls into your ballpark. I mean, was this a Ted issue, or did the supervisors bring this up?
Well, I believe the supervisors didn't want to speak necessarily in favor of it, but they wanted to grant them permission to disturb the steep slope since it's basically owned by the township. It's not the right of way, I guess, or it's part of the overall right of way of the township as opposed to, I guess.
So I guess
it's already deeded to the township, but they didn't have any opposition to it in that respect as well.
So the township is not opposed to us granting a variance. Is that?
I would say that is correct.
That's the township's position?
Yes.
And as your legal counsel, I would only say that if the board were to construe that in an absolute way, I'm not sure that there's any case law in the Commonwealth that says a Board of Supervisors can legislatively prohibit this board from considering or granting a variance. In other words, I think it's ultimately in your bailiwick if the application is presented to you.
Despite the language of the ordinance.
Yes.
But Joe, remember we've had this before where we have, have made a difference between incursions into natural steep slopes versus steep slopes created for some construction reason in the near distant past. So we've, such as a road or, moving, to building construction to move earth around and create a steep slope for some reason. So into those areas, we have not considered, really part of the ordinance or the prohibition in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
So Joe, would you like to make a motion in regards to appeal number 2020-6?
Concerning appeal number 2020-6, application of Plainbrook Partners LLC for a variance pursuant to section 200-57D 1, 2, and 6 of the Township Zoning Ordinance, permit the construction of an access drive providing adequate site distance along Church Road for the proposed daycare facility and other existing buildings on the lot adjacent to the subject property owned by 105 Church Road Partners LLC, located at 105 Church Road, Malvern, Pennsylvania. Pursuant to the testimony and the exhibits on the record, specifically referencing the condition contained in the letter and discussed on the record today, I make a motion that we approve the requested variance.
Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you so
And Mr. Jaros, just before you sign off, a
much.
matter of housekeeping, so we have it on the record. You agree that the hearing was held timely after mutually agreed to extensions of time?
I do.
And do you waive the MPC timing for issuance of a written decision?
I assume, Mr. Rao, that a written decision will be forthcoming in a timely manner.
I would try to get it out in about 2 weeks, but not tomorrow, if that
Very
works.
good. Not a
All
problem.
right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next on
Thank
the
you.
And
next
if
on the
the,
agenda is Appeal
if the chair is ready, I'll-
2020-7.
sure.
Are the, whoever's up, Mr. Suppley, I guess, and Mr.
I
Risman?
think Mr. Lotta is our primary speaker, I believe.
Lotta, okay.
And if the chair would like, this is a little different in that Mr. Jaros was doing the offer of proof as a lawyer. I believe the folks here on this application are all potentially fact witnesses. So if you'd like, I'll just name them, and
Okay.
Mr. Haggerty can swear them each in. So I believe we have Robert Lotta, who will be the primary speaker with an offer of proof. The homeowners, Ryan and Caitlin Suplee, and then Lauren Showers, also of Lotta Kennedy Builders. Are both of the Suplees here?
I'm here. My wife's actually taking care of our 2 small children right now. Would you like her here to swear in as well?
No, that's
Unless you-
fine. So why don't we
Yeah.
swear in Robert, Ryan, and Lauren if Mr. Haggerty would like.
Would you please all raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Your son has to raise his, your sons must raise their hands also.
And then just very briefly, and then we'll turn it over to Robert Lotta. We have 4 board exhibits once again. Exhibit B1 is the application dated February 24, 2020. B2 is the proof of publication, which is on reserve while we're waiting for the proof to come in. But the legal ad ran on June 7 and June 14. We also have the staff affidavit of posting and a photo indicating the posting of the property on June 15th. And then B4 is the solicitor correspondence dated June 5th, acknowledging the application and setting forth the applicant's notice responsibilities. And then Mr. Lotta, if before you tell the board what the application is about, if you or anybody you'd like to can just briefly run through your applicant exhibits, which all of the board members have, just to tell us what they are and the numbers. I think you've defined them as attachment 1, 2, et cetera, and we'll just call those exhibits A1, 2, et cetera.
Okay. Bob, would you like me to?
I'd like you to present those, please, because you
Perfect.
absolutely have them in front of you.
Of course I do. Give me 1 second to get to the beginning of this document. So attachment 1 for this appeal number 2020-7 is the application for variance, which includes the township application form, the list of neighbors, and the reimbursement agreement. The next attachment 2 is the letter of authorization from Ryan Suplee stating that we are able to act on his behalf. Attachment 3 is the certificate of notice to neighbors, which includes the letter and list that was sent out on June 5th. Attachment 4 is copy of notice to the neighbors, which also includes the legal ad that was given to us to include with that letter. Attachment 5 is the plot plan and plot plan with the proposed garage layout. There's also a zoomed in version of the proposed garage layout included there. Attachment 6 is the elevations, A20. Attachment 7 is Daniel's Consulting stamped plans. And that is what we have submitted.
Okay, and the board has studied your application, and I believe they understand that what you're looking for is only a dimensional variance, not a use variance, to have an incursion in the front yard setback under 2022 and 2020.A of the township zoning ordinance. From our look at the plan at the staff level, we understand that the proposal for the renovation to add an additional garage piece would potentially have an incursion of 18 feet 9 inches into the front yard setback, meaning you would reduce the setback to 21 feet 3 inches. So that's what the board has before it. But if there's any detail or anything that I've gotten wrong on those numbers, feel free to correct me. And we'll turn it over to you.
That seems correct. Lauren, I believe those numbers are exact.
Yes.
And I think Mr. Barner has the site plan handy. Maybe he could pull that up to show those numbers.
This is the general site plan. I think you provided one that was marked up with the addition
Yes.
of some dimensions. I can pan to that in 1 sec.
I think it's the next page there. Yeah.
Let me just rotate quickly.
Mr. Lotta, we see the plan here, or whoever would like to talk. Do you want to describe the lots in general in this neighborhood? They're quite small.
They are smaller. However, this lot in particular is a corner lot.
It looks to be very narrow, and the building area seems to be oddly long and narrow also.
Yes, and there is one corner that is outside of the original layout, as you can see.
There's actually several corners that are outside the envelope for construction.
Mm-hmm.
On both sides of the house, in the deck and back, right? Yeah.
Right off the deck and the back corner, yes.
Correct. Yeah, there's several spots.
That's correct. However, we have found that even with increasing the size of the garage, that we will fall well within the limited calculations of coverage.
For sure. And the homeowner, needs this garage. It's important to have this garage because why?
We are requesting relief from the setbacks. This will enable us to not only enlarge the garage, but the renovation will allow for necessary insulation, plumbing, and overall improvement of the infrastructure of the laundry room. To bring to code standards. Currently, right now, the plumbing runs through a concrete slab. This will enable them to have a more comfortable laundry room, living area, as well as an enlarged garage.
And this is undoubtedly critical because of the expanding family.
That is correct. And the Suplees really enjoy where they live. They enjoy all their neighbors. They really would like to, stay there in that home.
Do any of the board members have any questions in regards to this appeal? Karen,
I do not.
Jay,
I do not.
Joe,
No questions.
Karen, would you like to make a motion in regards to appeal number 2020-7?
Sure. With respect to appeal number 2020-7, the application of Lotta Kennedy Builders for a variance as shown specifically on the site plan that was submitted with the application pursuant to sections 200-20.a and 200-22 of the Township Zoning Ordinance to permit the expansion of the current one-car garage into a two-car garage and to allow for the construction of a mudroom and laundry room in the rear space of the garage. Property at 18 Deer Run Lane in Malvern, located within an R2 residential district. I move that the application be approved.
Second.
To that motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none. Good luck.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lotta, just before you go, I'll ask you the same questions I asked Mr. Jaros. Can you just confirm for the record that the applicant provided the zoning hearing board time and extension of time to begin the hearing this evening?
Yes, they did.
And would you waive the municipality's planning code timing for a written decision, which would be required tomorrow under the code, but we'd like a week or two to get it to you?
Yes, we completely understand that, we're all working under stressful time constraints, as soon as you can.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Okay. So at this point, our next zoning hearing board is Ted, if I'm correct, this will be July 27th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct. Okay. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This brings the meeting to a close. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Good evening.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.